Okay, so The Dark Knight Rises really sucked, and I know that's like, a big thing to say, but I'm disappointed that Red Letter Media didn't agree with me here. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not holding it against them, but I found problems with The Dark Knight Rises similar to the problems that they pointed out with the Star Wars prequels, actually. And it wasn't plot holes or anything like that, though there were a few of those. They don't concern me that much. It's that when I tried to get emotionally invested in the movie, it completely fell flat because the movie was poorly constructed for that. When I tried to be excited about the action, the action was just spam. It sucked. I mean, it was good as effects and all that crap, but that's not really what's important to me these days. Okay. Now, why do I care about movies? Why? I used to be this really single-focused radical, who thought that the world was messed up and all I was gonna worry about or care about or follow was politics and all that. And then I got interested in pop culture because I read philosophers like Gramsci, Lukács, and a little bit of Hegel, who are all either Marxists or related to Marxism. And they sort of convinced me that pop culture is actually sort of an accidental political commentary. It's like an unconscious political dialogue, and pop culture and radicalism within pop culture is sort of part of the transition within the minds of the overwhelming majority that has to take place before any kind of insurrection. So I realized, pop culture is actually kind of important. But now I don't think it's so important to me anymore. I think I'm going back to my old monofocus because of this movie, which was supposed to be the big Nolan movie. It kind of ruined movies for me because if he can't make a movie I like, then I'm probably not going to really want to bother with anything I see at all. So, why did The Dark Knight Rises suck? Why did it suck? Well, actually, I think Batman had a really weak character arc. I don't think he changed during this movie. And that's a big problem, because I wanted to feel emotionally invested in that change. Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, Batman is a hermit who lives in his mansion and hasn't talked to anyone really for 8 years. Okay. And then, by the end of the movie, he decides to go out and become Batman again. Now, see, I don't think that was an actual change. I think he was, his butler asked him, why do you stay in all the time? Why don't you go out and live a life? And he said something like, I tried doing that, but the last woman I fell in love with got killed by the Joker. This seems to me to just be one character. This is one, continuous Bruce Wayne. And one continuous Batman. Because, he says there's nothing out there for him in the world. And that just sounds like Batman. It just sounds like a guy who's obsessed with only one thing. And so all he does is go from an inactive Batman to an active Batman. And that's not a big emotional change. What would have been a big emotional change was if he had actually moved on. What if he was actually living it up, partying, had settled down in something he hoped was going to work out for life? No, he doesn't do that. Because if he had done that, then when the villains came back, he would have actually been sacrificing something to be Batman again. He wasn't really giving anything up. He wasn't really changing his attitude. He, believed that everything sucked except being Batman, and then he became Batman again. It didn't sell me. And then I have this whole problem with the prison that he was put into and got out of. I know it was supposed to be sort of like reliving the Bat thing, being weak and then finding strength again. But I actually think that should have been Gotham Prison, not some bizarre prison about the League of Shadows. I think this movie was way too much about the League of Shadows and not enough about Batman and his arch nemesis. That's what it, keep it simple, and they didn't. Honestly, that's my next point. That I felt like there was no core to this movie. There was all this commotion. There were all these plot twists. There were all these plot details. Honestly, I couldn't tell what the trucks were driving around the city for a long time. Bane's big military trucks. Eventually, I figured out that they were keeping the nuclear device in one of them and keeping it moving. But I only realized that 10 minutes after those trucks were there, and I was like, well, why are there these trucks here? And there were just a million things like that. They just moved too fast, too many quick details, just too much to follow. It should, keep it simple. Superhero movies is like the modern version of an ancient myth, where you have the god, you have the god's nemesis, and their fight sort of means something, and that's what's important. And instead, it was all this plot crap that was all confusing and just got in the way. And then, of course, they did the thing that they did last movie, and this was a criticism I had of Dark Knight, where they crammed this twist ending in at the end without giving it time to like properly emotionally develop. It's like they just add a new villain. Oh wait, so this is supposed to be central now, but I haven't been building up emotionally about this the whole movie. That sucks. Yeah, so I didn't like adding Talia al Ghul at the end, Ra's al Ghul's daughter. Once again, this was too much about the League of Shadows, not enough about Batman and his arch nemesis. And honestly, if Batman had an arch nemesis, I really don't feel like it should have been the League of Shadows. The whole idea of Batman is that he's like a criminal crime fighter, and he deals with the contradictions of being one. His arch nemesis should be a criminal, not another kind of criminal crime fighter who just does it in a different version through annihilation instead of individual crime fighting. That makes for like a weak central conflict if that's his main nemesis, because like I don't know, that's just like too weird and philosophical. I like philosophy and I like philosophical villains, but just something rings false about his main nemesis being something so similar to him that they might as well be on the same side almost. Whatever. Okay, so too much commotion. Not enough time for it to develop. Too much distraction from the main conflict. Okay, and then I think they misused Catwoman badly. Now I thought Catwoman was a really cool character, really sassy and all that. Okay, cool karate moves, and they didn't overdo her cheesy Catwoman suit. It was she was a cool character. However, the problem is that I feel like she was the only character with a character arc, whereas I think she was supposed to be more of a sideshow, really. The way Catwoman has traditionally been used in the cartoons or the comics is that she's like Batman's dark temptation. That Batman and Catwoman encounter each other, and what happens? Batman tries to apprehend Catwoman for being a criminal, and Catwoman sort of says to him, we're not really that different. You break the law, I break the law. You live by your own code of ethics, so do I. And then Batman says, BS, you're a criminal and I'm a crime fighter. But it's still difficult. One, because she's hot and Batman falls for her. Two, because she's not simply hot, but she is like this really strong individual who is capable of, like breaking into places and, doing superhero sort of, external superhero sort of things. And that's also sort of a attraction for Batman. And so the character arc, when Catwoman is involved, is not supposed to be that Catwoman changes and becomes a nice helper at the end, which she did in this movie. It's supposed to be Batman who changes. Batman who sort of falls for her and then decides that that's a bad idea and he's going to stay true to his path. So they didn't even do Catwoman right.